one word that people would associate PMI with: transformative. Transformative. I think that we demonstrate constantly how we're trying to stay a foot ahead in the profession, but then to be able to have the members and the community like fully jump on board with that and take advantage of those opportunities that PMI provides, that it would transform themselves, right? Because anytime you're going through organization transformation, if you're fully invested in it, you're transforming yourself as well. Whether you're the project manager or you're on the project team, you have the opportunity to transform yourself, hopefully for the better. So yeah, I think I would choose transformative.
Hi, welcome to Project Management Matters. This is a podcast where we discuss everything about project management, from project, program, portfolio management to PMOs, and everything in between. We focus primarily on the professional project management, and we talk to the people who make a difference in the organizations that they serve. Today, I'm very excited to have a special guest who's a friend of mine, Brantlee Underhill, who is the Chief Community Officer of PMI. So welcome on the podcast, Brantlee.
Thank you so much for having me, Philip. It's great to be with you.
I think that it's very difficult to run across anybody in PMI, if you're involved, who doesn't know Brantlee. But I think it's great if we can start with a little bit about your background and the story, because you're probably one of the longest serving staff members. I don't know, you joined PMI when you were like 15, I think. So
last century.
So I'd love to start there, talk about what brought you to PMI, and tell us about your role as the SIG coordinator, and get us started in that area. I'd love to hear about that.
Wow, we're going way back. Yeah, some nostalgia there. I joined PMI in 1998. I found the job in the newspaper, if you can believe that. It's like, who finds jobs that way these days? It was really interesting. It was an invitation to be part of a growing organization that had international communities working with volunteers all around the globe. I had studied foreign language and political science at Westchester University in Pennsylvania, and I was kind of debating whether to stay in the area, or I had an opportunity to move to Washington, D.C. and work in the political atmosphere. I decided to take this chance on the PMI role. When I went for the interview, it was in Upper Darby, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, driving down Route 3. And they told me, the hiring manager told me that they were in the process of moving locations because they had outgrown this rented building. And when you went into the building, it was like people like almost sitting on top of people. There were, even the CEO's office had multiple people sitting throughout the office. It was really crowded. So I understood why the group was going to move. So they moved a little closer to where I live. They moved to Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, in building number 4. And like within 2 years, the second building was erected. One of the founders of PMI, Jim Snyder, which was why PMI was located in the Drexel Hill areas, because of Jim. Jim actually had a shovel to break ground for these properties. So he was there on the scene and sort of like being the honorary project manager, watching everything happen in the space. But I think that whole time from like 98 to 2002 was this, 2005 was this ramping up period of, there were a lot of governance changes happening within PMI. As you probably know, you were on the board of directors. The way that the organization was governed completely changed. And then by 2005, there was a major explosion of the PMP as global countries, and especially China, really embraced the PMP. And so it's just been a constant change and evolution within PMI, which, when people ask, why do you still work here? And like, what keeps you energized? First and foremost, it's the people that I get to interact with every day, from the community to my fellow employees, especially the volunteers that I get to work with, but also because the organization is always reinventing itself. So it's been really cool to see. You can never get bored at PMI.
So it's like a triple accidental happenstance, as it were, because you didn't plan on going into a career in project management for sure. You didn't
No.
plan on association management, and you didn't plan on being local to where you grew up. So that was kind of a nice happenstance, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I get this interaction with the global community. So like living where I grew up doesn't feel so isolating to me. I feel like I have some really amazing exposure to people, countries, cultures, everything.
Yeah.
And also when I joined PMI, I had no idea that there was this career called association management or nonprofit management. Like it wasn't a field of study that was offered at my university at the time. The closest thing would probably be public administration. But I had a boss who came on board who taught us all about nonprofit management. The fact that you have incorporated societies and they're governed by boards of directors that are elected by the membership, and there's all these fiduciary responsibilities. And we were just like minds blown, like, what? Because PMI grew up so organically. And at the time, well, even today we have over 300 chapters. But about 25 years ago, we embarked upon incorporating all of those chapters just to make sure that the PMI, the volunteers, and the brand remain protected. So, yeah, it's been very interesting to see like how we've learned, and maybe like that's a big theme of like you learn as you go. I definitely learned about project management by working in this space and have like hundreds of amazing mentors, like yourself included, on what this profession is about and how to best support it.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about one unique aspect to your job, because I think both when you were serving the SIGs, which were the specific interest groups, and also the chapters, it was very much a virtual position because you were interacting with leaders who were literally across the globe. And at a time when probably the vast majority of employees in any type of sector were not doing that. What was that like? And talking with friends and family, was that very unique, or was it par for the course for you?
No, I think even still today, it's challenging to explain to friends and family what I do. I mean, even project management, like people recognize the PMP before they recognize PMI. So sometimes just starting there, like being a certifying body and setting the standards of certification for this profession called project management. Oh, what's project management? And when you start to explain it, people are like, okay, I get it. But I think there's still so much opportunity to help people understand what this profession is, what it does, the value it provides to communities around the globe, and even as a career path for younger people. There's still so much opportunity to be able to penetrate those ignorances. When I started at PMI, I was commuting to an office. Did that for 20 years until the pandemic hit 5 years ago, and we let go of our physical office space. But commuting to an office, working in person with teams, supporting both the chapters, which our PMI chapters are our in-person communities, and they're organized around cities, regions, countries. And then at the time, we had something called specific interest groups, which were virtual. They had no geographical boundary, and they were based on industry or interest areas of project management. And I think, one of the things we did is we set them up exactly the same as chapters. We said, chapters, your geographical SIGs, you are virtual, but the way they operated was the same. And I think that's a lesson learned that we've all experienced as everything evolved within PMI. The SIGs would have benefited from less governance heavy requirements and more knowledge and content focused engagement efforts. And I think that's a great opportunity for where we are today.
Absolutely. What if you were to compare, like let's say 15, 20 years ago versus today in terms of that, I just think about the technology that we had available. I think many of the volunteer activities that I was engaged in were literally like putting stamps on envelopes
You
and
remember when we used to send membership reports? And
yeah,
we had
the
the SIG,
gifts.
the IS SIG, which was our largest one, like I think over 15,000 members, and we used to print out all the membership reports and mail them monthly. Oh my God, what a nightmare.
So when it came to the pandemic, do you feel that PMI just kind of naturally transitioned into the remote work very easily because of that nature of work? It seemed like that should have been a very easy, shift for you guys.
I mean, you would think so. So I'll talk about it in two ways. One is prior to the pandemic, and I think even when you read the PMBOK guide and you read everything about the way this profession is supposed to work, is project management works well with teams that are dispersed, right? And you have projects that operate all over the world, and therefore the people that run those projects and support those projects are also located all over the world. And I think we're still seeing the evolution of that because that frequency has increased drastically post-pandemic. So yeah, PMI was mostly an in-person company. We had some telecommuting arrangements, but not so much. And then the pandemic hit. We thought we'd be home for 30 days and then 90 days. And then 6 months later, people were invited to come back in the office and people didn't. That's a handful did, but most people did not.
And
And
how big is the staff organization now?
today we have 750 employees all around the globe. At the time that the pandemic happened, I was the regional managing director for North America. And I was hiring people who were located all over North America. I don't think I hired one person who was in the Philadelphia vicinity, which is where our headquarters were. So therefore, I think this is the silver lining about the pandemic is that it opened up the opportunities for talent beyond just being physically located where the office was. So, and the same is true today. I mean, we have employees over, geez, I can't tell you, dozens of countries all over the globe. Some of our regions do have physical offices that employees might still take advantage of or go into on occasion or on a daily basis, like in China or the UK. But for the most part, our whole employee base operates virtually. And I think we talk about it as an executive team that we feel like we're still getting used to that. We're still building and strengthening our ways of working. We do at least try to bring employees together once a year through some team environment or like a group team meeting. Some of us see each other pretty regularly because we're supporting PMI events around the globe. But it's important to us that all of our employees have the opportunity at least once a year to be in a team environment and interacting with their colleagues, spending time with their bosses and getting to know one another. But otherwise, you really have to make an effort to make that happen on screen.
One of the things that a lot of project managers complain about is the fact that you're leading without authority because you don't have that organizational position that gives you the authority in the organization. And as you grow in your career, you might take on functional responsibilities and then you are able to kind of manage people from a functional perspective. Compare it to working with volunteers, because you've been both in PMI, you've both worked in a staff role, but also in a managerial role, and you've managed staff. But managing volunteers must be a very different experience than dealing with employees in an organization.
Well, PMI was founded by volunteers. Jim Snyder, Eric Jeanette, and the team built this organization from the ground up of their own efforts and sweat and tears until PMI began to hire professional employees in the late 70s and the 80s until, like, as I mentioned, 750 member staff. But I think it's also important to know that we have over 17,000 volunteers that support the work of the Institute. So when we're developing those standards and the certifications and products, learning products, events, Our employees are the facilitators of that process. And so the volunteers are contributing their time and their talent, their knowledge and know-how into the development of all the value that is offered to our members globally. So, working with the community side, I think we have people, the volunteers that work at the local level on the chapter side, but I've also leveraged volunteers to help in the development of some structures and frameworks just to help our ways of working be simpler and smooth as we work across these community archetypes, or whether we're developing the products and the services that our members benefit from.
So, thinking of community and looking at PMI as an organization, give us a sense of how that compares to other professional associations out there in terms of size and influence and kind of engagement as compared to other professional bodies in the US and around the world.
Well, there is no other project management association or organization that is the size and depth and breadth of PMI. With 750,000 members, over 2.5 million credential holders, 17,000 volunteers, 300 chapters. It's massive. It's really a big undertaking on how the scale of the organization has grown over the last several decades. We're also we're not a licensed profession. I know this is something that you and your time on the board have talked about. Say like a professional engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, where you're required to pass some type of exam and be licensed by the state or the government in order to practice your profession. So it's really by choice, and most of our member benefits and offerings are to support the professional development and the career-long journey of learning that one goes through from the time they decide they want to be a project manager to post-retirement and having the ability to continue to give back and share knowledge.
Yeah, and I think it's really one of the largest professional bodies, period, even as you compare it to other professions, not just PMI as well, but when you look at, like IEEE or some of the other ones as well, it's high up there these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I would believe so. And in terms of the way we're structured and governed, you probably could look at, the IEEEs or the ISACA's, CFA Institute. These are probably organizations that we share some experiences with here and there on when we're faced with a new challenge, but also believe that technology and digital transformation, just transformation in general, has pushed the nonprofit association to look at different ways providing value and staying relevant, because it's not just about who your other organization competitors are. It's about technology and knowledge and access to those things that are creating great competition for people's time and attention. Where do people go when they have a free moment? They're probably scrolling. So how do you show up and maintain relevance when to catch people's attention when they have those moments of downtime?
As we look at the topic of community in particular, I'm interested in getting into the next strategy and also your role in that. Maybe we start with your role. What is the Chief Community Officer role in PMI? And tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe from there go into the strategy as well.
So we define community as project professionals and aspiring project professionals. We then sort of slice and dice that community. We've got members and credential holders, volunteers, chapter members, student members, aspiring credential holders, online community members. So all of them make up different aspects of our community. Our role with our community, and my role, is to help build and grow the community. So build the size of it, grow the engagement that happens within it. So when you look at each of those distinct segments, they have unique needs or interests. They also have an immense amount of knowledge and experiences that they've accumulated, and we want people to be able to share that knowledge with one another. So we find that people come to PMI for the opportunity to build their professional development, to grow personally, And then also even to give back. So that could be in the form of volunteering or, being a chapter leader or working on the PMBOK guide and offering knowledge. But we also have just in time volunteering and ability to like present your knowledge via a webinar on our online community. So there's lots of opportunities for people to be able to share what they have with one another, and our role is to create make it easy. I mean, it's one of our values. Make it easy for people to be able to share that knowledge, but also be welcoming and have them feel like being part of this community is something that energizes them, and it prompts them to want to do more.
You mentioned that there are different segments that PMI targets as part of the community, and you talked about different needs. How do you guys go about identifying what these needs are, and how are they managed to ensure that it's a win-win relationship?
I think one of the differentiators about PMI as an organization is that for as long as I can remember, we've had a dedicated market research team who have done a really fantastic job of helping us consistently understand the indicators of where the profession is going, what our members want, why people don't renew, why they let their certifications lapse, what would be useful and necessary for them to progress in their careers. So we do a lot of surveys. If you're a member of PMI, I'm sure you get tapped on the shoulder every now and then to complete one of these surveys or participate in a focus group. Alongside of that, we also have a thought leadership team, which also is looking at the future of the profession. And you'll see their work show up in our thought leadership report. So you might see some of these reports like our Global PMI Talent Gap Report or the Salary Survey, which is in its 13th edition. We're talking now about a new era for enterprise agility. So all of these reports are made available on pmi.org, and they're pretty rich and dense. These are the type of topics that we love to talk about and have our community talk about if you come to a PMI event or join our online community discussions.
So speaking of PMI events, how much travel are you doing these days to reach the community at large? It feels to me like sometimes you're always on the go from one corner of the globe to the other.
Well, I think most of our leadership team is on the go supporting the communities either globally or within their regions. So, aside from our executive team, we have 8 managed regions. Each has a managing director, and they're managing the relationships with the community and with the larger ecosystem in the region, which would include organizations, government entities, maybe members of our Global Executive Council or authorized training partners, academic institutions. So they all make up a part of this ecosystem with our community that sort of fuels the PMI flywheel. Is like once you get that momentum going, you start to see more and more PMI show up, and the impacts of the work that we do. When organizations or governments recognize the value of project management, incorporate it into the way that they work or even into their business outcomes. So aside from that, we put on global events like our biggest event of the year is our Global Summit. That's in North America. It's coming up in November in Phoenix, Arizona. And then you'll see our Global Summit series that happen within the regions and sort of take on even though they have the PMI global content, they'll take on a regional flair and incorporate some of the themes that are crucial to advancing that particular marketplace, or that kind of hit the nail on the head on what are the themes and interests of the community. This year, we conducted the Summit Series in Europe, in Barcelona, in Asia Pacific, in Manila, and just recently in Rwanda for Africa.
Great. Is there a particular region that you really enjoy traveling to, or is that going to be too controversial?
I love them all. I love them all. I really do. It's the thing that makes it very interesting and fun are the PMI volunteers and the chapters. Because, you've traveled a lot with PMI too, and you could go anywhere in the world and almost feel like home when you are welcomed by the volunteers in that area. And this is true for any PMI member. If you're curious and you're traveling to another location, connect with your local chapter. Ask them what's going on. Go to one of their events, or start to build camaraderie with the chapter leaders. I find that everybody has always been very welcoming and want to make you feel like you're at home.
I think one of the things that you notice as you travel and meet people across the globe is that project management types share some certain characteristics. So, your comment about feeling at home is in a sense kind of connecting around topics that might be of common interest or the passion. So I think that probably is one of the takeaways that I learned in my travel. I don't know if you've seen it as well.
Yeah, I mean, even the different types of events that we have. So one of the areas that we help develop our volunteer leaders is through events that are geared towards volunteer leaders, like Leadership Institute meetings. The purpose of the LIM, as we call it, is to bring together chapter leaders so they can network and learn from one another on what it's like to manage a chapter, but to be able to create valuable engagement opportunities for members as a whole. And when you go to one of these limbs and you you're networking at a reception, people are talking about their families and what they do for fun, and it becomes very personal. People are really open to sharing what their lives are like outside of the workplace. And usually if you go to a global summit, people talk about what's happening on their jobs and the challenges that they have in the workplace. And people are very willing to share their experiences with one another to help one another. So I find that it's a very giving community, and everyone that I've ever run into is very open to making it better. It doesn't mean that we don't have challenging conversations. I mean, we've been in some parts of PMI eras that have had its ups and downs, and generally the community just wants to see PMI advocating for this profession and helping their bosses and their leaders of their organization understand the value that they provide. So that's part of why we exist, is to help the world understand how project managers and the use of project management makes our communities better where we live and work.
Yeah. You didn't join PMI because you were a project manager or even an aspiring professional. It was accidental. And yet, I think about a year ago, you got your PMP. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're now part of the big group of PMPs. Tell me a little bit about that journey and how the nature of the volunteer projects are compared to a regular organization, in the sense that, when we're talking about volunteerism, you're dealing with people who are working with you in a priority that, might not be the top priority in their lives. They have their jobs, they have their families, and there's volunteerism. So is the expectation any different when it comes to planning projects, and how does that impact some of the projects that you've been involved in PMI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll speak about it from the point of view of, say, a new employee. Like, so when someone joins PMI and they're like, well, what advice do you have for me? Like, get to know people, like get to know the people that you work with, because nothing here happens through one person. But in your role, most roles are going to have some interface with the community. Some roles are going to require the high stakeholder engagement. If you're developing a product, if you're facilitating the next edition of the PMBOK guide, if you're managing ethics review process, whether these processes are organized at the board level or the employee level, someone is helping a group to be able to work through that process. So you have to understand the project management lingo. So yes, go read the PMBOK guide, but also know how you learn. Like, is it easier for you to read the book, or should you participate in some webinars? Maybe go to an ATP and take a training course. All of these things will help you get to understand what the profession is about And most of the time, once you figure it out, you're like, okay, I've kind of been doing some of those things most of my life. I just didn't know it had a name. And you can get really into it. It can be really scientific if you want it, if you want to. And the way that I kind of came up with it was asking the volunteers that I worked with to help me learn these things. Like if I was using project management software, I would ask the professionals, I would ask the volunteers, like, could you help walk me through this? And what should I use this for? What are the best ways that I should approach this? I've done that time and time again, whether it was benefits realization management or being a more effective executive sponsor of a project, which I do most of the time these days in my role as a member of the executive team. Why do people volunteer for PMI? Yes, you can get PDUs to maintain your certification, but that's not the main reason why people volunteer. They volunteer because they want to improve the profession. They want people to know what this profession is about and grow it. And selfishly, maybe they want to manage and grow their own network as well. But I find most of the time it's for very altruistic reasons. And yes, like you said, people are giving their time and their experience outside of the workplace and outside of their family time. And some people will spend up to 10 or 15 hours a month doing this, sometimes more, depending the role they're in. So there are definitely opportunities to choose a volunteer opportunity that maybe you can only spend a couple hours a month, or maybe you want to spend a few hours a week doing that. We post all of our volunteer opportunities on PMI.org through something called the VEP, Volunteer Engagement Platform. So if you're ever curious about what types of opportunities we have, go search the VEP. You'll find things that are more technical, like maybe developing a project management standard, to things that are more community oriented, like supporting a PMI event or even running the PMI presence in your local area through a PMI chapter.
As you're talking about this and mentioning a couple of the acronyms, this brings back a memory a few years ago when we talked about maybe PMI needs to publish a book of acronyms for all the different acronyms that we have that cover pretty much everything that we do.
We definitely have that in our guide for new employees.
When you look at the career path that you've taken, you're one of the most positive and energetic people I've encountered in the PMI ecosphere, as it were. How do you keep that positive momentum going, especially after so many years? What keeps you excited about PMI, about the profession, and why do you keep going?
I think it's my genuine curiosity of people. So one of the things I learned over the years is I never took psychology courses, but I always joke, or maybe I'm serious, that everything I learned about psychology, I learned on the job. So I am working with people and volunteers all the time. And people's reasons and motivations for volunteering differ. Like you think you've seen everything, but I still see new and different things all the time. And it makes me curious, like, how do I connect with this person? How do I help them get what they want? Or how do I ensure that what they want is aligned with where PMI is going? And if it's not, how do I reveal or diffuse that misalignment? Because we have a tendency sometimes to want to say yes to everything, and sometimes you have to say no, or you have to say this isn't where we're going. But how can we meet in the middle, or is it a hard no? So I think working in this type of environment requires a lot of people skill, curiosity, listening. I tend to do better when I listen for a while and then can take some time to process it. Outside of work, I am very physically active. It's sort of the way I'm wired. So I feel like just being outside in nature and outdoors and finding challenges in that space helps equalize the challenges that I face on the job working with people. But I think it's all kind of been an experiment too. Like what It's been a forgiving environment where I can learn on the job, or, a lot of time people will tell me like, I think you could have done this better, differently. So I seek out that feedback and input and try to accommodate and tailor it for the environment that I'm in as well. I've learned by working with many different cultures, there's certain ways to approach a conflict or approach an opportunity, and other things you don't do. So it's good to have like a cultural guide that can help you navigate through those opportunities. And again, like I've talked about with chapter leaders, there hasn't been a place I've gone to where a chapter leader has helped me navigate those spaces and made me feel comfortable and be able to challenge what I already know.
As you look at PMI through the generations, I mentioned a few weeks ago on a different episode, we're in a very unique situation in the world because we've got organizations where we have 4 or even 5 generations of employees.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Or volunteers working together. So beyond the cultural norms and the cultural boundaries of dealing with diverse opinions, diverse topics, now you add not just 2 or 3, 4, and 5 generations. Have you seen that in PMI? And is this something that just kind of naturally happens, or have you put in plans to kind of deal with that on an organizational level?
Yeah, I mean, I started at PMI 27 years ago, so I'm no longer the youngest person. Yeah, I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was me one time. Just last week, my nephew, he just graduated Temple University, and he said, hey, would you talk to my friend? She also graduated with me. She's got a comp sci degree. She just really wants to, talk to people, get some experiences as she's searching for jobs. So the first question I asked her was, do you know if you want to work in an office or you want to work virtually? And she said, I kind of want a hybrid. And she said, this is also why I asked you to have a video call, because I live at home with my parents and I really just want some exposure to people. So I thought this was interesting because this is what's happening, right? Like people are leaving jobs because it's not the ideal work environment. They want to work virtual or they want to work in person. So I think that's important to know about yourself, is how do you think you're going to operate? And then the second thing I suggested to her was like, we talked about like what she wants to do with her degree. And I encouraged her to be dynamic in her options, because she could go this route, or that route, and that's going to open up more opportunities for her. If she's not just locked into one particular discipline, I think it's going to be harder to get into those spaces. And then the third piece of it is getting people's attention, to see you, to get to know you, to know who you are. If you're applying for a job today, like when we post PMI jobs, they get thousands of applicants. You can't go through every single resume. So we use AI to help us with that. So like how are you going to get recognized in this field of applications? So I recommend to people to go out and network, like get people's attention by meeting them. If you're in the project management space, PMI chapters are a great place to do that, because a lot of times chapters have sponsors who are they're recruiters and they're looking for talent. So there's a great opportunity maybe to connect in your local community, but also in the disciplines that you're interested or involved in, or other thought leaders. Like just get out and build your networking skills. It'll also help you when you have to get out away from that computer and that computer screen, to be able to hold some conversations with other people. So yeah, be dynamic, know what you want, and be a good networker.
This is a great advice. Going back to the beginning of our discussion, my experience joining the workforce is very similar to yours. You found the job in the newspaper, you applied. If I had to take a guess, they probably received maybe 20 or 30 applications, hard copies sent in the mail. Yeah. I think for my situation, they interviewed maybe 2 or 3 people, and then I was selected. And with thousands of people applying, I think that your advice about networking and the role of PMI can be very critical in helping young professionals and even professionals who are changing careers to differentiate themselves through the network.
But don't give up. Like, keep planting the seeds, and plant them in different gardens, plant them in different places, and like just keep going back and checking on it. And I know that like we rely so much or we spend a lot of time on social media, but what are you portraying about yourself on social media about who you are? And are you consistent? Like if someone were to scroll through your LinkedIn page or your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever it is, are they going to get a good idea about who you are and what you stand for, and what you're looking for, what you're about? I think it's important to be consistent, but don't give up. Keep planting the seeds, keep watering the seeds, and it will happen. It will happen for you.
So if we look forward into, like, let's say 5 years from now, what would be one word that you would hope that people would associate PMI with in the future?
Ooh, one word that people would associate PMI with: transformative. Transformative. I think that we demonstrate constantly how we're trying to stay a foot ahead in the profession, but then to be able to have the members and the community like fully jump on board with that and take advantage of those opportunities that PMI provides, that it would transform themselves, right? Because anytime you're going through organization transformation, if you're fully invested in it, you're transforming yourself as well. Whether you're the project manager or you're on the project team, you have the opportunity to transform yourself, hopefully for the better. So yeah, I think I would choose transformative.
I think that's a great place to conclude our discussion. It's been a very rich dialogue, and I've really enjoyed reminiscing on some of the old times and exploring where PMI is headed. As always, it's been great talking with you, Brantlee. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Thank you, Philip. You too.